Hey guys, thanks so much for clicking on my channel. I appreciate that. So today we're going to work on our FRADAN 18 horse self-propelled blower. I think we've had it maybe 2 seasons now. It's a really great machine, but we keep having one small problem with this machine is the drive belt for the hydro keeps loosening up. And I don't know if the belt is stretching. Belts don't usually stretch, they just kind of wear. But we've had to tighten it about 2 or 3 times so far. And tightening the belt on these machines is quite a challenge. It's not the quick, easy, like just move the adjuster. So we actually went out and we got a new belt just because it's leaf season right now. And it really sucks if your machine breaks in the middle of a job or something. So we're gonna go ahead and change the belt. We're gonna show you how to change the belt and what you need to do. And if your machine is slipping, this is more than likely why it's slipping. So we're gonna go get to it. Okay, here's the machine that we're working on. It's a FRADAN Magnum. This one has the 18 horse Vanguard on it. It's a self-propelled blower, so it has a hydro. Now the belt is underneath this cover. I don't know if you can see through with the camera, but it's like a double-sided belt and it goes through some really crazy angles. So we're gonna pop the cover off and we're gonna show you how the belt sits on there and what you have to do to get to it. Okay, so as I explained, first thing we have to do is remove this housing right here and bring it in. So to remove this housing, there's 3 screws. They actually are self-tapping screws, so there's no nut on the other side. And there's one here, there's one on this side, and there's one underneath this leaf. Imagine that, there's a leaf in our way. So, and those are 10 millimeter. So let's get in there, get these 3 off. Coincidentally, they actually use stainless steel on this machine. It's such a well-built machine. So if you have a magnetic tray, they don't stick to it. But anyway, just nice to see the quality. I'm gonna switch sides with you. And the third one is really awkward, but with this extension, you can get to it easily. Or easier, maybe, not easily. So, got one job, Kel. Don't drop the screw. What does he do? He drops the screw. That happens all the time. Okay, so there's the 3 screws that hold that cover on. And once you get those 3 screws out, then you can just pop this thing right off. Nice heavy metal guard. Put that here. Now, I'm gonna blow these leaves out of here in a minute, but I don't need to do it to show you. So here's your drive belt, and see, it's kind of loose again, but as you can see, this thing goes through quite a few crazy angles. So here's your hydro, here's your PTO off the engine. Now there's this adjuster here that slides up and down. I don't know that that adjuster tightens anything up at all. I think it only moves up out of the way just so you can set an angle on the belt, or so you can move it up to get to these 2 bolts. So if you come over here, you can see here's an adjuster right here on this threaded rod. Can you see it? Mm-hmm. Now, that's all fine and dandy and it's pretty easy to move, but the problem is there's a nut and a bolt, and there's another nut and a bolt right here. I believe they're 1/2 inch, and you have to loosen both of these, and there's a nut underneath, which is really not easy or convenient to get to. We'll flip the camera around in a minute. So we'll be right back. All right, so safety first. Always wear glasses when you're using compressed air. But you should know that. But anyway, here we go. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna crawl underneath here and I'm gonna show you the 2 bolts on the bottom. Let me get, sorry, the camera work. It's kind of hard. So these 2 bolts are underneath. See, there's a nut and a bolt on them both. So you have to get underneath here, which means you come in from the back, right between the hydro and now I'm gonna actually, let me turn it off, hang on. To get underneath at that nut in the bottom, I'm using a 3/8 extension and this universal joint here. And now, one of the nuts is easy. You can use a regular 1/2 inch socket, but the other one, the threads come down so the socket won't go over. So a regular long, deep socket is too long. So I have this socket, which you can see the difference between the 3. This one here works perfectly with the extension. So you have to put all this on here to get underneath. Try to put it on the right way. And this one you can hold the nut underneath. And then with the wrench, you can actually do this by yourself. I've done it myself several times. With the open end or box wrench, you can put it on those 2 nuts I showed you before. You just hold it on there like that. And then you get creative. You get creative with your socket under here, which everything is always in the way, including the light. It's a nice option to have so you can see, but it's always in the way. Make sure you're going the right way before you get in there. I still do the righty-tighty, lefty-loosey thing because it works for me. So, like I said, with the extension on there, easier said than done always. There you go, pause it. Okay, so I've got my socket in there on the nut, and then take your open end for the one that does not have the adjuster. And I already loosened it a little, but just for the sake of it, you can loosen this one up. You don't have to take it off, but you do have to loosen it. And then now we have to go to the other one on this side. All right, I got that one loose. And then same thing, hold it on there. Or if you have someone who's not holding the camera for you, you can have them hold it on there. So I had to sacrifice my helper for the camera work. And same thing, you get this on there and you loosen. Now you can see this whole pulley thing is moving. So
so close.
I know. I know. It's always out of the reach every time you drop something. All right. So anyway, that's the first thing you do is you loosen that up. Now, if you're just going to tighten the belt and not replace it, then at this point, you can come over here. At this point, once you have those 2 bolts loose, then you can just use your adjuster right here, which there's no easy way to get to this adjuster either. Excuse me for a second. Because if you try to put a socket on here, it hits between the tire. If you try to use the box wrench, it doesn't give you a lot of room, but you have to play with it and tighten it. So like I said, there's a lot of really awkward angles on here, but that's how you would go about just tightening the belt until you get a better tension than that. I don't know what the actual tension is, but we're gonna go ahead and replace the belt just because we have the belt. So we'll go to that next. You're gonna have to take this idler pulley off here. It's 2 9/16 wrenches, or you can use a socket on this side if you want, but it's not really too difficult. And I don't believe you have to take it off either. I think you can just loosen this up enough. Don't hold me to that. Let's see, enough to get the belt off. Yeah, I think it'll come off. Let's see, maybe. Get it off here. Of course, for the sake of the video, I don't have a screwdriver in my hand. So let's just try to pop that off if we can. Okay, that's off. And then maybe we do have to take this off all the way. I'm not sure. Let's loosen it up some more. No, it'll come off without. Yeah. Okay, and then you got all these crazy angles, which, of course, with the angle of this pulley against your adjuster, guess what? You're never going to get the belt off without removing this pulley. So we were able to get that one off without removing it, but this one we're going to have to remove this other idler pulley. I have every air ratchet possible, but I've chosen to use box wrenches. All right, so let's see if we get that off. And this off here. You didn't think for a minute that you were gonna get this belt off, did you? Come on, guys. Take the whole thing out. Remember which way it goes. Like that. It's got some funky spacers in there and stuff, so remember when you take it off which way it goes. Okay, now we've got our belt out. It's got some wear to it, as you can see. It's peeling a little bit. Doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but like I said, we've had to do it 3 times, so it has some wear to it. We'll keep it as a backup just in case something does break. But we got our new one. So first thing you do always when you get a new part is make sure it's correct. Now I'll tell you what, there's a significant difference between the belt that they gave us and the old belt. So we possibly have the wrong belt, or there's just that much of a difference in the belts. So we'll be right back. Okay, so you saw the difference in the belts. Now, I mean, I bought it from the dealer, so I'm assuming that that is the correct belt. But I mean, belts don't usually have a lot of play, and that one had, I mean, there was a good inch or more difference. So with both of these idlers loose, and then I moved the adjuster all the way in, I was able to pop the belt. I got the belt through all these first, and then I just spun the engine by hand a little bit that way. So now we're gonna try and tighten up these idlers and see if we can get them so the belt looks a little straighter than it does right now. But I mean, it's on there, so we're gonna start with our this idler first, I think. We'll get our 2 wrenches on there, and we'll bring it in. We'll see what it does. And when you do this idler, this little plate moves. You want to make sure it's not hitting the belt in either direction. I think that's just so the belt doesn't fall off. But as you get it pulling in here, it's getting close now. There's some crazy angles on this. I've never seen a belt like this before. Okay. That's all good because it's hitting there. Okay. Yeah, so you gotta turn this piece so it's in the right. Now let's try to bring this one in. And like I said, when you put this one back in, make sure you have a spacer, and then you have make sure your spacers are correct. Otherwise, you're gonna run into problems when you try to spin it. Now, as I'm doing this, it's catching the threads, but it's going in the right direction. Okay. There's no adjustment on this particular idler. It's just an idler. There's no adjustment. This one has the adjustment on it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to snug this one right up to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. And then it looks to me like not only is there an adjustment on the belt tensioner for forward and back, but there's an adjustment on it to straighten it out also. It's an elongated hole there. All right, we'll be back in a second. Okay, so like I said, there's a difference in the belts, but this is the one the dealer said this is the belt that goes on here. So it's pretty tight, which I mean, it's a belt, it should be tight. Always worry that if it's too tight, it'll wear out like one of the bearings or something, but we ended up putting the belt on through these pulleys, and then we spun the engine to get it to hook on here, which seemed to be the easiest way to get the belt to hook on. Then we tightened this idler first, and then we tightened this idler, which also this thing moves up and down, and you want it to be in the right position because in coming off of this pulley here, where the wrench is, it's even kind of in an up. But like I said, the angles on this belt, it's got a lot of angles. So the last thing we're gonna do is we loosened our adjuster all the way back. Doesn't need to be tightened at this point. And we're gonna tighten those screws up, the ones we showed you in the beginning. And like I said, you can actually do it yourself, or if you have a helper, it's nice to have a helper. So there's one, and then with this funky little adjuster, excuse me, talking and working is not always my forte. Universal, that's the thing, it's called a universal swivel for the socket. Okay, so those two are tight. Pieces off of there. So, like I said, things to remember. Make sure you remember how it comes off when you take your idler off, and make sure you get all those pulleys in the right position. Then make sure this guard here, which is the belt guard, is not rubbing against the belt or anything on either side, and everything's free and clear. So what we're gonna do now is, before we put the cover back on, we're gonna start it up and just make sure that everything looks okay, because we can see it a lot better like this. And that's what we're gonna do next. Looks pretty good. No vibration. Definitely don't put your hand in there. Okay, so it looks pretty good. Like I said, the belts are all in the right direction. We got a double-sided belt on, let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4 pretty hard angles on that little belt. You can see the twist in the belt right here as it goes from this pulley to this pulley, because you're using the back side of the belt. On this pulley is the flat pulley, and these are V pulleys as the V part of the belt and the flat belt. So I don't know what your skill level is as far as, you know, mechanical things. I would say this one is probably like a little medium. Not necessarily difficult, but it definitely has some challenges in there. So if you have this problem, I hope the video helps. Okay, so we popped the cover back on. We're there. And we got our 3 10mm stainless. So I'm just gonna thread those in by hand just to get it started. These two are really easy. The one on that side is a little challenging to get started. Once you get it started, it's not too bad with the extension, but I'm gonna try and get it in there. My fingers, I know it's so hard to see it. It's hidden behind the battery. All right, so I got them all threaded by hand. I'll start with that one because you're over there. Put my little ratchet on here. And like I said, those are self-tapping, or they're threaded into the frame, so there's no nut on the other side. Okay. Let's do a little end video. Thank you guys so much for clicking and watching our video. I hope this helped you if you have this blower and you've had this slip. Like I said, we've had it slip about 3 times, and you saw the difference in the belts. It was a really big difference. Belts, like I said, don't usually stretch, but in this one, I gotta say, I think that belt stretched a lot. So again, thanks. Hit the like and subscribe. Have a great day. Peace.